Okay, we're back. All right. So, alrighty. So these are TIG gloves, right? So TIG gloves are white, usually white. They're very thin. There's a reason for that. Okay. So those are good for MIG welding and stick welding. Yeah. So TIG gloves are very thin. So when you're looking for a TIG glove, what you want to do is you want to find you want to find gloves that are tight when you buy them. The leather's going to loosen up. So don't get gloves that fit well when you buy them. Get them tight. It should fit like a baseball glove or a golf glove. It's the same leather too, if you notice. Tight and fit really, really well because we need to manipulate the wire. And I'll give a piece of wire out to everybody today and you can practice at home when you're watching TV, radio, what have you. So this is what the wire looks like over here. All right, so TIG wire is right here. So TIG wire is, there's no flux on it. As you see, it's bare wire. There's no flux on here at all. And when you see it on a print, we've seen like 7018 or 6011. They're called like E78, you know, E718 or E6011, that electrode, okay? This will be called ER, electrode rod. The difference is electrode rod is just a metal rod. There's no flux on it. So if we see a print and it says like ER70, you know, what are the first two numbers on the rod? What are the first two numbers on your filler wire tell you? Right. So an ER70, which would be an ordinary piece of mild steel, kind of equivalent to 7018. Same thing, 70,000 pound tensile strength wire. But ER means you're using a TIG wire process. You're not stick welding it. So if the print says like, you know, ER70, you stick weld it, people will be like, okay, that's totally wrong. So you gotta watch out for that. ER is electrode rod. This also applies for MIG welding too, by the way, because this is, when you think about it, this is the same thing as MIG wire. MIG wire is spooled, this is straight lengths. So if you happen to be in a shop or at home and you run out of TIG wire, you can actually use MIG wire and you can TIG weld with it. It's the same stuff. So on the print, ER could designate either TIG welding or MIG welding, either one, but it's a bare wire electrode. So this is red, it is copper coated, but the copper coating is just to keep the steel, help it not corrode. That's why it's there for rust proofing. It doesn't affect the weld at all though. And you may see a little bit of coppery like discoloration on the surface, but it does not affect the weld by any means at all. I've got some stainless steel over here. Stainless steel. Another big advantage of TIG welding over stick welding is I can weld stainless really clean. So great for aerospace, surgical stuff, things like that. It's really fantastic. I can weld titanium, magnesium, Inconel, basically all of the exotic metals. Those are all TIG weld processes. That's kind of what they're designed for. And the rods come in different sizes. So rods can be as large as 1/8 of an inch, all the way down to like 0.20, 0.25, you know, very small, and sometimes even smaller than that. Very small diameters. Basically, the smaller the thing you're welding, the smaller the wire you need, right? So there are rules about that. I mean, you can't have a wire thicker than what you're welding. So if you're welding a razor blades together, your wire needs to be thinner than those razor blades. So that's kind of the rule there. And that same holds true for stick welding as well. You can't have a rod thicker than what you're welding. It's gotta be smaller than that.
You have wires thinner than razor blades?
Well, yeah. Oh yeah, thin stuff. Oh yeah, I mean, look at this. Take a look at that one.
Can you cut it before you?
Yeah, oh yeah, no, you can cut it whatever you need, of course. Yeah, I mean, they come in standard 3-foot lengths. No, you can cut it down, sure. Now the wire, how do I know what wire it is? Every wire is gonna be stamped on it, okay? There's gonna be a stamp on it that tells you what alloy it is. So you wanna know what it is, you know? So it lets you know what wire it is. So let's get this thing set up and let's run through some basics, shall we? So we're set up, fantastic. Okay, oh, thank you very much. So now we're welding using tungsten. Okay, so right here, I've got a pack here of 1/16, 2% thoriated tungstens. Now, in the chapter that that I put up on week 6, it tells you kind of about what does that mean? Like, why are there so many tungstens out there? Well, in the beginning, they used pure tungsten, and those ones will have a dark green. They're all known by the paint on the end, all right? Tungsten is the same color, so they all have a paint, like a paint mark on the end. Dark green is pure tungsten. So in the beginning, all they had was pure tungsten. The reason tungsten is used is just like the SR71 thing, it's super, super, super hard and it resists heat, super high temperature, which is what we need for the electrode. They discovered though, well, it's okay, but can we make it better? Can we make it better? So people started doing a lot of experimentation and figured out they could add small amounts of something called rare earth elements. So you remember your periodic table, there's a strip down at the bottom. There's a weird, like, what is that list of elements that are kind of like, yes. No, those are called rare earth elements. Now they're called rare earths not because they're rare. They're actually quite common, by the way. The trouble is they're extremely difficult to refine out of the earth. They're very abundant, by the way, but they're incredibly hard to separate out from like what they're mixed into. So that's what makes them very, very expensive, but they do some amazing stuff. So these rare earth elements added to, say, tungsten, thorium, what does thorium do? Well, thorium gives it very high resistance to melting under heat. Great heat resistance. If you're doing real serious cranking at high amps all the time, this keeps your tungsten from just going like and shriveling away. Now there's like cerium. Ceriated tungstens have a light gray paint mark. I like those. They're great for doing super thin stainless steel. They make the arc very stable at very low amperages. So if you want to weld at 5 amps, it'll hold that arc stable. Another tungsten, it may be like a weak candle flame and blow out. So all these different tungstens are designed to give you an advantage for welding a certain metal, low amperage, high amperage. And so if you go to the store and you look at tungstens, it's almost like going to an oil parts store and looking at motor oil. Seriously, check it out. There's gonna be a row behind the counter of like a rainbow colors, and it's like, whoa, which one do I buy? And I mean, there are other ones that I call laser ones, which are gold, which are like the trimix ones, or a mixture of like yttrium, like all these weird mixtures of strange elements you've never heard of, and they're all supposed to do something better. Do they actually do something better? I don't know. Just like motor oil, everybody has a preference. But there are some that do have notable effects that give you a better weld. As a welder, you should test these things out. Know for yourself. You know, test it out. Does it actually weld better or not? These days, a lot of people use lanthanum. You know, the 2%, you may see on videos a lot, everybody uses 2% lanthanum. Why? It's inexpensive, it works really well. It's like an all-around, really, really good tungsten. It's not expensive.
That's the blue one, right?
The blue ones, you have light blue ones. And it has another property. You can weld AC or DC with lanthanated tungstens. Now, remember those old green tungstens that I started out with? Could not weld AC, only DC. So you have a problem. Well, we can't weld another polarity. We're gonna have to come up with something new. So there's, you know, these ones are one, and also diameters. They can be as small as 1/16 to as big as like an eighth inch thick, or a 1/4 inch thick. Big, bigger power, bigger tungsten. And TIG welding, just so you know, generally our maximum thickness is going to be about 1/8 of an inch, okay? Well, 1/8 of an inch is kind of like our ceiling. Now, is it hard and fast? No, but remember the thing here is you have 1 amp per thousandth is kind of our ballpark amperage figure. So at 250 thousandths thick, how many amps are we talking about here, people? Yeah, we're talking a lot of amps. We're getting up to some very high power figures. This machine is a 210. You see? Now we can weld 1/4 inch with it, but it's really going to be like, you know, it's like driving a car at red line all the time, you know?
Would it be water cooled?
Yeah, you'd want a water cooled torch because you're above 150.
Right.
I mean, I can do a 1/4 inch on that thing, but you can feel the torch getting really hot, and you're like, ooh, you know, this is pushing it a little bit. So TIG welding, realistically, like, and I will be asking you that. I mean, I think I asked a question about that on the last print. What process would we use here? So yeah, if it's a 1/4 inch and above, we're looking at like MIG welding or stick welding. If we're a 1/4 inch and below, that's the territory of TIG welding. Now, can I MIG weld it? Well, yeah, they make MIG wire, you know, there are machines that MIG wire stuff like this, really small wire. You could do it. Yeah, it is possible, sure. Is it gonna be as clean as a TIG weld? No. Is it gonna be as beautiful? No, but you could do it. So a TIG weld is kind of like 1/4 inch and then to, you know, as thin as you can, as thin as you are able to do. You know, I mean, I can do razor blades. I've seen people do aluminum foil, which is like, you know, or weld 2 soda cans together. You know, that I did about half one, but then the paint started burning and it smelled so bad I threw it away. You're welcome to try if you want. It just stinks. So those are kind of ground rules those are the ground rules and history of this thing here. Why we have it, why we do it. So here's another box of tungsten right here, right there. You know, we want to take care of these things. So when we use the tungsten, let's be really mindful of not like, don't throw it out. You know, we have a little box for tiny little piece of tungsten. It's expensive stuff. Some tungstens, if you look at the price of a box of these things, some of the more expensive ones can be like $110 a box. That's like $10 a piece. So we want to be very mindful. Always work in here like it's your rig, okay? You know, like I say, it's a loaner. Treat it like you're borrowing somebody's very, very expensive sports car. Don't bring it back with a dent. Yeah.
Quick question.
Sure,
This
yeah.
goes back to something I was talking about.
Of course.
Pipe welding.
Yeah.
The guys will do the root
Uh-huh.
and the hot test, stick it,
Mm.
cap it with whatever.
Yes.
But they're still working on a flange that's, you know, with the belt and everything, pretty thick.
Mm. Yeah, and the person who's visiting tomorrow will do that.
Is that because they're able to throw a lot of heat with the thing?
Yes, thank you for asking that. Yes. So, a very, very important thing here is that TIG welding is very, very, very hot. One of the things that we forget about is that when we're stick welding, a great deal of the amperage that we're pumping into the weld is being used to melt our rod and the flux. So when we look at this, here, like this rod right here, okay? A lot of our amperage is just going to vaporize the flux to melting this really thick rod. Look at the difference. You see? I mean, I can run 200 amps with this thing. Sometimes I do. I may do it right now. Look at the difference here. You've seen what 125 amps or 100 amps does with this. And with no flux and the thinner wire, we really have to be mindful of the amount of heat we're pumping in. This is the biggest issue for us, heat control. And for all of you students, the number one thing you gotta learn is managing your heat, which is really getting that foot control down and being really on and off real easy with your power, because you're gonna be pumping in heat like crazy into the material. Very easy to burn it up before you know it. Yeah.
You showed us the thing, it's like the heat power is like the most how you showed me the other day, like where it's like 1, 2, like when you
Yes, same kind of thing. Yeah, so this one has an advantage. On the Miller, you're going to be able to see the output in real time. When I run some beads, watch the power up. But this is different from stick welding, where you set and forget it. Here, we can control the power at will. and we have to. So when I hit this, you're gonna see that modulate really carefully. So let's get it set up. So this one's already got tungsten in it, and I want to get my a torch holder, if there's any in this place. Ah, here we go. No. So this is a torch holder. So I made these a year ago. I have the pattern for this if you want to make one for yourself. These are very useful. The pattern, you weld it together. The magnet is from Harbor Freight. The magnet on sale is like $5. It's a 95-pound pull magnet. So it's very strong. You will not find a stronger magnet. Some of the boots are equipped with these. But if you want to make one for yourself to have at home, this can hold a MIG gun or a TIG gun. Very useful because this way, when I'm welding, I have a place I can hang my torch and it doesn't fall on the floor. So it's a very useful thing to have. You can put it sideways, upside down, wherever you're working. So it's a good thing to have. You can make one, paint it up, it's your thing.
Those are commercially available also, correct?
Yes, they are. Yeah, they're not expensive. You can see these for like $20 or something, but I figured, well, hey, the metal's free.
Yeah, why not?
Why not? I like making stuff on my own. It's just more enjoyable that way, So put the titanium aside. This takes special processes to weld this. That's why I brought the purge box here. If I try welding this just in air, the back will actually burn. I just want to demonstrate that with a piece of stainless steel. Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. Questions are important
At the
here.
beginning,
Yeah.
the video for beginners,
Yeah.
it said never TIG weld with a TIG weld without a cool pack. That's what it is, like an ice pack or something.
Where? Which one?
This is the first video. It said,
Well, you made me a chill block.
Yeah, chill block.
Yes. So that's why I've got all of these various aluminum blocks here. These are for you to use. So one of the difference, because we have to manage so much heat, we want to use what are called chill blocks or cooling blocks or backup blocks. These are going to help suck heat away from the metal we're welding and keep it from overheating. It's a big advantage. A lot of people do not do this. And if you're welding thin material, as some of you have noticed stick welding, you've noticed a difference when you're welding on the table and suddenly you put the piece in position. Some of you may have noticed that metal starts behaving very differently. It gets hot a lot faster, stays hot a lot longer, and is a little more difficult to manage. This will even the score here. This will allow you to think about like a giant ice cube. It's going to pull away excess heat from the material, allowing you to weld longer, better, and put a much stronger weld down. And you don't have to do this race against time thing, like, I'm going to overheat, and then you end up doing a bad weld. So we want to slow down. So there's lots of these here. I've got more around. When we do TIG welding, I encourage you, work this into your planning stage. When you're jigging things up, this should be a part of it, Because remember, these are also squares, so we can use these to set up our joints and everything else. They do a dual duty here. Chill blocks are important. Use them. Little trickier on pipes and stuff, but for piping, I've actually taken like a round piece of aluminum that fit inside the pipe and slid it inside the pipe to weld the pipe and then pulled it back out so it didn't burn. I have it in my office. I'll show you next time. It's still sitting over there. We did it last class with students. It worked out pretty well. So let's get welding. So TIG welding is one of the few processes where it's permissible to sit down.
Right.
Don't get so excited here. All right, so just so you know, we will be doing a couple of things where you can sit down, but we also want to work into our TIG welding practice and this is at the request of industry, by the way. This is not just Carol and me. This is that people told us, can you please do that? The ability to TIG weld out of position. So kind of like what you're doing now. We're gonna do some things where you gotta stand and you're gonna be TIG welding in funny positions, like you're doing at the moment. That's why I'm doing this with you. It was at the request of aerospace companies. Hey, we need people that can weld that position as well as bench weld. Because sometimes when you're repairing something, you can't bring it to the table. You gotta go there. Yeah. Well, yeah, so you gotta get into a space and fix something. So we wanna be able to do that. Now with TIG welding, we're gonna be controlling using this. So this is a foot pedal. So with the foot pedal, when I press it down, you hear that? When I press it down, I'm getting it all the way down, I get a full 170 amps. When I let it off, now I'm 0. Now, that hissing you heard, this machine automatically opens the gas valve. So when I hit the pedal, it starts the gas flow, and when I stop, there's something called post flow. It lets out a little bit of gas for anywhere from 5 to 12 seconds. That helps it cool down. Now when we're welding, I know with stick, you pull out really quickly. Now with TIG welding, don't do that. What you want to do is let off the pedal, keep your hand there over the weld, and let that cooling gas, like a shower, over your weld and let it cool down, okay? And if you don't have an automatic timer, count it out. Give it about 8 to 10 seconds, okay? Called cool down time. Make sure you do this. If you pull out too quickly, you'll see your weld go purple right in front of you. And when it goes purple is bad. Purple and gray are bad. Okay, your weld should at most have a nice golden color, maybe a little bit of light, what they call peacock blue or green in there. They should never be purple and most never ever be gray. If they do turn those colors, you're way too hot. Now I know a lot of people online, you see a lot of pretty welds, especially exhaust systems, they're like, look at those beautiful purple welds. Every time I see those, I cringe. Because when I was working in industry, doing stainless steel, we really strove to minimize as much as possible. We actually did it consciously for several weeks. We actually said, okay, let's turn down consciously, keep turning down the amperage as much as we can every time we're welding, and let's see how low we can go. And we actually did that intentionally to reduce the overheating of our welds and to see how much amperage do we really need here. Surprising thing is not as much as you think, okay? Think of it like this. If you're driving a really heavy vehicle, all right? When you first get that vehicle going, like a truck with something really heavy in the back, okay? When you first go in like first gear, it's like, you're really getting the thing up to speed. But once you're at highway speed and you drop it down to 6, it's like you barely need to touch the accelerator. All that mass keeps going, right? Right? So, huh? Yeah, that mass keeps you going. Now with this, the amount of heat you build up is going to keep you going. So once you get that weld pool fluid, you only need to add as much amperage as you need to melt this tiny little wire. That's it. The weld pool will stay liquid. So if you start off, I may start off at 200 amps, but it may drop down to like 35.
You're adjusting the amps by your foot.
With my foot, exactly. So I'm adjusting this like the accelerator on the car. And you want to constantly adjust it with what you're doing and really be aware of that. This control is also proportional. So something that may help you is this, okay? The control is proportional. So right now I would set to 170, but I'm gonna crank it. Let's go to 200. And a lot of times in welding, I'll leave it at 200 amps. It's like, whoa, are you using 200 amps? No, but here's the thing. It's proportional, so if I press all the way down, hopefully it won't arc out. Ready? We're okay. If I go all the way down, I got 200, right? So if I go halfway down, how many amps am I getting? A quarter, how many am I getting?
50.
You see? So with the greater number, I have to push less on the pedal, right? Now, if I say, oh, well, I'm only using 50 amps, so if I set it to 50, I've got to floor the pedal every single time. So you end up going like this, and your body is hopping around all the time. So what we want to do is move the pedal. If I set to 200, a lot of times all I have to do is just curl my toes to depress the pedal enough to get my amps going. So I'm not even moving my leg, I'm just curling my toes. Which means if you're TIG welding, you might want to loosen the laces on your pedal foot. A lot of times when welding at home, I'll wear like a soft sneaker, or sometimes barefoot if I'm at home. I know it's terrible, but if I'm in my house, you know, just because you want to have something, you want to be able to bend your leg. If you have really stiff boots, really tight laces, you can't bend your ankle, of course, because you're working on a construction site, you don't want to hurt your ankle. But welding, you need that. So I'm going to turn this down to 150 because I don't think we need 200 today.
This is the rod. Stick is not going to stick to the metal like it does with stick mat welding because
Your tungsten will
we're
stick.
not. Your tungsten will. If that's the way you want to
It's
know.
not supposed to, but sometimes it
Sometimes it does. I mean, I'll do it. Yeah, it might.
Literally stuck that.
It might. Let me grab some metal if we have some pieces here I can kind of monkey around with.
I was gonna say that
Yeah, exactly.
He made it.
Let's do the corner change.
All right, you have some thin metal here which we can play around with. Oh, yeah, can you bring it over here? That would be fantastic. Thank you. Aluminum. And the last
You have to
component
take your
is
whole torch apart.
acetone. Where's our acetone?
Obviously, you let go of the pedal, because otherwise
here
you
we go.
can't let you do.
Yes. All right.
Sticks, what do you do? Yeah.
So another big difference.
You have to undo it, and it'll come loose.
Okay, another big difference is this. Another big difference with TIG welding is cleanliness. So something that we haven't had to deal with, as we know, 6011 is designed for welding on dirty, crappy, rotten metal, correct? Okay, TIG welding, it's gotta be clean. A good way to think about it is if you wouldn't eat off of it, you can't weld on it, okay? It's gotta be as clean can be. So we use acetone right here. Now you could use regular alcohol, but here's the thing. Alcohol that you buy in the store is only 70% alcohol, 30% water. That water residue will completely give you a hard time. Yeah.
If you get the high proof, like you can get like 90.
Or like fuel alcohol. Yeah, if you get alcohol that's used for fuel, like Home Depot sells cans what they call alcohol fuel. That one, yeah, that you could use.
You can get isopropyl.
Yeah, if you get 100%, that'll work. Acetone is universally kind of like the #1 best one. Acetone, of all the cleaners that we use, acetone leaves 0 residue. It removes all contaminants, oils, grease, whatever, leaves no residue. Downside is it's a little stinky. It's also highly flammable. So if you saw the video I posted, you really gotta be careful about that. So with the rags you're using to clean, you want to make sure these don't go laying around somewhere they can catch on fire or ignite, because acetone is highly flammable, dangerous stuff. So you want to be very careful with it and be mindful of this. Also, breathing it can make you get quite dizzy. So if you're in an enclosed space, be careful. You want to be careful about that, because it is just, it can make you very dizzy and make you kind of sick. So be careful with this stuff. So let's start with stainless right here. So I got a piece of stainless steel right here. I want to, first things first, I want to have a clean workspace. So just to kind of minimize dealing with a crappy table, I like working on a metal block. So I've got a bunch of blocks over there. You notice there's a pile there that have orange on the side, say do not weld on them. I prepared those during the break for you. So these blocks are for you because you can put on the table, work on top of the block. It's flat, it's machined flat. It's a good work surface, and you can clean it. So it's a good, you want a good solid square work surface to TIG weld on. If you're working on the tables that people are stick welding on, it's going to be not a fun experience. So if I clean this off, because remember, it has to be, I don't want it dirty. It's got to be cleaned off like I'm eating off of it. You can see what's coming off of here.
Is that
This,
arc flash or something inside of that?
yeah, somebody got an arc flash on there. Yeah. This black stuff will get into your weld. So if you're welding, TIG welding, you notice black things. They call it salt and pepper. That's what this is. The blacks on the surface is contaminants from the surface of the metal you didn't clean off. So we want to now prepare it. So I got my stainless here. One more component of this puzzle is Scotch-Brite. Wait, Tom, read it. This is a little ratty, but I think it'll work for our purposes. The preparation of your surface is 2 steps. The first step is you want to acetone your material, whether it's steel, stainless, any of the metals you're welding. I'm going to clean it with acetone, both sides. Now, looks pretty clean, right? Okay, next step is I want to rub this down, give it a light abrasion with Scotch-Brite. Scotch-Brite is really good too. Why not sandpaper? Because remember, sandpaper, what happens is it's sand. It's aluminum oxide, but it's sand. Little bits of that sand can get embedded in the surface of your material. Do you have issues with this with wood? Yeah, so same kind of thing. So Scotch-Brite is really cool in that it won't do that. So the brown is a really good one. You can get this at Home Depot. It's not expensive. It's easily obtainable. So what I want to do is I want to lightly rub my material all in the direction of the grain of the metal. Believe it or not, metal has a grain to it. I don't want to just like scratch over like a maniac. Rub in the same direction, okay? Please. The reason I'm doing this is that what property makes stainless? What does it do?
I think it's zinc and
No! Next person.
carbon.
No.
Back up.
Iron.
Chrome, yes. Why? What does it do? What does it do?
It won't rust.
Yes.
Stops the corrosion.
Yeah, it's self-protective. So the chrome, yeah, so the oxides will build up a layer in response to oxygen.
And it takes about 20 minutes for it to
Yes,
dry.
so you see how shiny it is right now? See that? Okay? In about 20 minutes, it's going to start reestablishing that layer of chrome oxide on the surface. I'm removing it very gently.
Dendrites?
Huh?
Dendrites?
No, that's inside. That's with hardening. It's just the surface like a crust, you know? So, yeah, so now I want to remove that residue from the surface. There it is. You see it? You can see it. There, the gray right there. So I'm removing that the chrome oxide. You want to do the same with aluminum. Aluminum does the same thing. So any of the metals you're doing, just lightly sand the surface, yeah.
When you're using a wire brush, should you do the same thing, go in the direction of the grain of the metal?
Yes, and if you're using a wire brush, that's a good question. You can use wire brushes like a brass brush or a stainless steel brush. You can use it. I have a little toothbrush in there. They're great for little crevices or like a fillet around a tube or something you can't get into. They're great, but you have to make sure that you're using a stainless brush, not a steel brush. So you gotta make sure that you're is this really the right brush for the right thing? Another one is, if you're using a grinder or something, is the grinding wheel you use new? A good thing is if you're working on your own or a shop, use a brand new wheel, because it can be really tragic to kind of sand stainless with a wheel that's full of carbon and carbon steel and it rusts. Or you're doing aluminum with a wheel that was used for steel. So we want to be really careful. If there's any doubt, it's you know what? If there's a doubt, don't use it. It's mystery. Don't touch it. So we're prepared to go here. This is stainless. Now I know what alloy this is. I know this is 304 because we bought it. But if you're in the shop, you want to know what it is. Because if you remember back to our welding, looking at welding electrodes and stuff, you want to use the right filler wire for the right metal. So for 304, I'm going to use an alloy with 308. 308 is the proper filler wire for 304. Have some right here. I know it is because we bought it, so I know what it is. If I were in a shop, I would want to draw that out of the container that says 308. And if it's sitting on the table like this, like that, yes, even these tungstens, realistically, these are a mystery. I don't know what they are. I'm not going to use them. Okay? It's like you don't know where they've been. Don't touch it, because if you use the wrong alloy, it could be tragic. You know. So if it's on the table, unlabeled, whatever, it's scrap. And unfortunately, I mean, that can be really bad. You know, we get these blocks of metal, in fact, from Windsor Steel. These are mystery metal. So these blocks were put away without a label on them. And unfortunately, they say they scrap out over 4,000 pounds of metal a month because of that. That's wastage. You know, so we want to be careful about that, you know? We want to be careful. But they donate to us, which is fantastic. But also some of these are offcuts. I mean, some of these are smaller blocks they can't use, but there are a significant number of the steel blocks we get from them that are mystery metal. You know, this is 6061, we know what this is. But the steel, if it doesn't have the label, it's like, how do you tell one from another, you know? And with these,
Don't work for those?
how do you tell which alloy this is? I mean, it had no label on it. How do you know what it is? There's no way to tell. I mean, stainless is all stainless colored. 304, 316, 309, I don't know what that is. Now, another thing which a lot of welders do, which can be very useful, is this. Not only clean your weld metal off and your block, but I like to wipe down my wire as well, because again, it could be dusty. A lot of times from the factory, they draw the wire through metal dies that have to be lubricated. So don't think because it's in the tube, it's clean, okay? They do sell wire that is clean, but it's a premium. It comes in nice sealed, hermetically sealed packages. It's not that. So clean it. This one is, you can see it's got a little bit of stuff on it. A little bit. It's not much, but it's like, wouldn't you want to get the best performance you can? You know? It really sucks to make a beautiful weld and go, oh, there's like one little speck on there. It's like, ah. Somebody inevitably goes, what's that? You know? They walk by and they're like, oh, you messed up. Okay, so here we're ready to go. We're all set. Now, I want to look at my tungsten. There's a lot of parts to this puzzle, ladies and gentlemen. I know you're dying, I know.
No.
So my tungsten. Okay. You want to keep this thing, this got to be sharp, ladies and gentlemen. You want to keep it sharp. One of those old questions the old timers you ask the new welders is, how often do you sharpen your tungsten? Correct answer is, whenever you think you need to. Seriously. When I'm welding, I'll usually take a box and I'll sharpen all 10 of these before I weld. I'll have them over here, and as I use them, they go in the box over here. And when I was welding professionally, our day would start that we'd take our box of tungstens, we'd get them all sharp, use them in the morning, lunchtime, resharpen them if need to, or if we're really good, that lasts the whole day. You know? As students, you're going to be doing a lot of walking back and forth, sharpening your tungstens. So how should it be done? Your tungsten angle, that's something, again, you can choose that, okay? The angle is something, it's like, well, what angle is the right angle? Well, a lot of that has to do with your skill level. And the angle can be anywhere from like a blunt rounded end you use for like for AC welding aluminum, which is like a ball end. They call it like a balled tungsten. Like you could have like a 45-degree blunt cone all the way to like a 10-degree like hypodermic needle sharpness. Now, why would we do that? The reason is, and this is counterintuitive, okay? The blunter the point, the deeper your penetration is going to be. Yeah, and it's kind of like, ooh, that doesn't make sense. Whoa, that's weird. But it's true, okay? The blunter your point, the deeper your penetration is going to be. The sharper your point is, the shallower your penetration is going to be. But it's also going to be focused. So with a very, very sharp point, you're going to have a 1/16 diameter like weld pool. So if you're welding like, thin sheet metal, oh, I'm not gonna burn through and have a tiny little dot for precision. If I'm welding like 1/16 inch steel, I want a lot of penetration, I want a really like volcanic weld pool, I'm gonna have a really blunt point on it. It also, blunter the point, it's not gonna wear out as fast either. The point erodes. As you're welding, the heat is going to erode the point away. So it is going to blunt, even if you don't touch the metal, it's going to gradually erode away. The better you are at welding, the longer it takes to happen. If you find yourself having to resharpen like every 5 minutes, you're doing something wrong. Professionally, we could weld all day, honestly, we could weld all day long, go from morning until lunchtime, and maybe have to resharpen the tungsten once or twice. Okay? You should be able to do that too. If you're sharpening all the time, something's wrong with your position, your movement, your heat control, something's not right, okay? Something's not right. So this tungsten looks to be okay, but I'm gonna quickly touch it up just so you can see how it's done. You have two options here. We've got a tungsten sharpener, which is that Piranha thing, which is good. You put your tungsten, you set your angle, put it in, you twirl it around, you just rotate it, sharpens, you're done. That machine's very, very expensive. Not everybody can afford it. What do I need to sharpen it? An ordinary bench sander, or even, believe it or not, an angle grinder with a wheel on it. Turn it upside down and just go like this, or better yet, put your angle grinder in a vise so it doesn't dance away on you, and you can sharpen your tungstens right there. You can use a belt sander. Plenty of places out there we use a belt sander. But a good safety is this. I know you see a lot of videos sharpening like this. Turn your tungstens upside down. I know it makes it more complicated to have to adjust the angle this way, but there's a very good reason for this. If you're sharpening this way and the point penetrates, say, a belt sander, it's gonna catch the point. It's like sharpening chisels that way. It catches the belt or the wheel, boom, it goes flying. If it catches a wheel this way, it's just gonna get sucked down in the machine. If it's this way, it'll bounce and go flying. Tungstens, as you probably know, tungsten is like the hardest metal there is. It's used for armor-piercing rounds and weaponry. So this can go through just about anything. This point will go through you like you weren't there. So if you have an accident with it, this will penetrate right through bone, muscle, and everything. If it goes flying, it'll go right through you. Very dangerous. So when you're walking in the shop, point down. Don't do this. Don't put them in your pocket. It's very common in shops. People put them in a pocket, in their pants pocket, and then they sit down. I don't know how many times I've seen this. Yes. And then they don't notice, and they're like, why is there a blood stain spreading on my thigh? Very common. It's a very common thing. They just absentmindedly put it in the pocket, and then they're like, ah, and they look and they're like, ooh. Be very careful. When you're welding, another one, be mindful. This happens a lot too. You put your hand down, boom, right into your thigh. So please be mindful. These are sharp. So I'm going to quickly touch this up. You can eyeball it. I like an angle of about 30 degrees. 30 is halfway. It's not 0, it's not 60, it's right in the middle. So when I'm doing really thin stuff, I'll go down to like 10 or 15 degrees. 30 will get you by. Does it have to be exact? No. Ballpark it. You'll adjust as you're welding. I'm going to quickly touch it up. Now, some people say that you need to kind of like blunt off the end. I have never, at shop a couple of years ago, we experimented, and honestly, we didn't notice any difference. Some of us blunted, some didn't. At the end of the day, we're like, it looks the same to us, so we're like, it doesn't really matter. Some people say it does, but honestly, I've never seen a difference. As to sharpening, never sharpen sideways, okay? Some people say, well, why can't you sharpen sideways? I go, well, does it make a difference? Yes, it does. all your sharpening lines need to be in the direction of the tungsten, okay? The reason is this: electricity flows around things, not through things. So all your electrons are flowing around the surface of your material. Another reason why you gotta keep the surface clean, ladies and gentlemen. It doesn't flow through the material, it flows around your material. So if you've got sharpening lines going this way, your electrons are like cars driving down a bumpy road. They're going, and your plasma is going to be like this. If they got nice smooth grind lines in that direction, your electron flow is nice and smooth and tight.
How are you putting that on the wheel?
This way, in line with the direction of the wheel rotating, like that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, not sideways to it.
Not sideways.
Yeah, you want all your lines should be in the direction of your tungsten. It'll give you much better performance, believe me. Just for the hell of it, you can try going sideways one time, just see what it does. It'll be really fuzzy and like weird. So I'm gonna put this in here and get loaded.
You sharpen it on the side of the stone?
No, so that's a good question. Don't sharpen the side of the stone, because on the side, if you get a groove in the side of the stone, it can propagate cracks and the stone can fly apart. So always grind on the face of the stone. Never, ever, ever on the side. Even if it's tempting, never grind on the side. A stone blowing apart is a very scary thing. Yeah, it's very frightening. It's loud. Very, very, very loud, and big chunks of rock go flying through the shop sometimes. It's a pretty frightening event. Don't want it to happen. All right, so this is stainless. Now what's cool here is you're gonna see the heat affected zone, which is cool. You haven't seen that yet. So get close, right? Get close so we can really check on this, okay? This is gonna be really interesting. So you're gonna see the heat affected zone in the steel, and let's see what it does. Okay, this is gonna be really, really, really interesting. Forgot my welding
And
glasses.
one more question.
Of course, yes, please.
With arc welding,
Yeah.
I mean, with this type of welding,
Yeah.
can you get the, what's it called, like the radius, can you get burnt by the
arc rate?
Yeah.
Yes. This is an electric arc welding process. Any process using an electric arc is going to produce ultraviolet radiation in addition to the infrared. So anything involving an electric arc produces ultraviolet radiation. So yes, we do need full coverage. Even though you're welding little small amps, I mean, you may see probably seen videos of people like these car shops where people are welding without gloves and in t-shirts and stuff. You're gonna get arc flash. I know people do that. It's tempting, but the first time you go in the shower and you're like, ow, you'll never do it again. Because it sucks. Arc flash is just so painful. You sleep, and every time the sheets touch you, it feels like somebody rubbing a cheese grater on your skin. I mean, you're talking about weeks of rolling and turning in bed all night.
Does it turn into a
You and Keith described
Huh?
described the same way.
No, it just peels. It's just, it's terrible. All right, so I'm set up. I got my piece here. Now, what I want to do, just like we're stick welding here, I want to adjust my workspace. How am I sitting? I want to make sure that my foot is in a comfortable position. I want to make sure that my workpiece is in a place where I can access it easily. I'm going to use this block to support my wrist. I could support my elbow. So I want to have it in such a way that I'm comfortable, I'm not straining, and I want to minimize shaking as much as possible. We're doing a very, very small weld here, so your breathing and your heartbeat are going to affect this. So we need to breathe slowly, relaxedly, calmly, excuse me, and keep that in mind. It's kind of like, it's like sharpshooting. So anybody that's ever done long range shooting, You know, you like, you can see your target bouncing around out there. So same kind of thing. We want to be very careful about that. So I got my gloves. Make sure my gas is on. We're good. So I know I got gas. Now this is set to high frequency. So you can TIG weld. Our machines here are set for a couple of different things. This machine is a high frequency machine. The red ones are what's called lift arc, and I'll demonstrate that in a minute. But high frequency is this. I don't need to touch the metal. I'm going to be running a high frequency charge from here to the surface. It's invisible. Sometimes you maybe see a little shimmer in the air. Once it makes ground, I'll be able to follow that with my full power current, and then I can start doing my weld pool. So I do not need to touch the surface, and you don't want to touch the surface. With lift arc, you do have to touch the surface, and the red machines do that. It's an older process, but excuse me, I got some in my throat. It will teach you good habits. So here we go. So the first thing I'm going to do here is I'm just going to get the arc started. Wait till I call the cover. Wait till I call a cover, okay? Now I actually have to repair this axe here, so I'm going to do it this morning. I repair this for somebody I train with. He broke his axe. I don't know what he was doing, but he asked me if I could repair it, and I'm training with him tomorrow, so I'm going to give it to him. So I'll do it here. We can take a look at it. So the first thing I want to do here is I want to get my weld pool going. So when I start my arc, when I hit it, I want to like move in like a little circle, okay? Don't just hold it still. Move it in like a little circle, all right? And what I'm looking for is the shimmer. I want to see a little pool, and I want to see it shimmer and liquefy. Don't add metal until you see the shimmer, okay? If you add your metal too soon, it's going to ball up on you, and it's going to get stuck. You want to wait for it to shimmer. What it means is once you get on the metal, you want to hit it fast and hard. You want to get that pool as liquid as quickly as possible. Hence, I have it set very high. Yeah, this is only 1/8 of an inch thick. So it shouldn't be 125 amps. Shouldn't that be your limit? Well, yes, but if I go beyond that, now I'm shortening my time. Does everybody get that? Yeah, I need 125 amps to melt this. But if I want to melt it in a quicker time, I need to up my amperage. It's like if I want to do the 1/4 mile faster, I need more horsepower, right? That's why you got, 10,000 horsepower dragsters. Yeah, I mean, it's only a 1/4 mile. I can do that in my Hyundai, okay? But yeah, you want to go faster. So same thing, more power lowers time. It doesn't necessarily mean I have more heat. Everybody got that? It's not about the heat. This is all about time, okay? More heat is less time. It's not about more power. It's about speed. Speed is what we want here. So with this, I like to put my arm through like that. This takes all the weight off my wrist, okay? If you're like this, all this is dragging your wrist down, and Pacific Arc TIG Welding posted a very nice video about he had to go to the doctor because he actually had a repetitive motion injury caused by this. A way around that is go like that. Just like stick welding, it takes the weight off your wrist, transfers it here. If you drop it or anything, it doesn't go anywhere. All right, so now I'm comfortable, my leg's in a good place. I can move my foot, it feels pretty good. I'm comfortable, my hand's in a good place. All right, so I'm gonna get my weld, so I'm gonna start and just get my weld pool going, and I'm going to do what's called autogenic welding or autogenous welding. Autogenous welding is also called fusion welding. That means I'm welding without using filler wire. One of the cool things that TIG can do is we can weld without filler wire. You can put parts together and just fuse them together without filler wire. Stick welding can't do that, neither can MIG welding.
It's not loaded, so it's okay.
So, very cool. So here we go, cover. Let's take a look. All right, here we go. So, that sound says high frequency, and we don't want that. So it's set for aluminum right now. So let me change my frequency. That buzz is the 60 hertz buzz of, there we go, DC 150. Okay, we're set now. Now listen to the difference in sound, okay? Here we go, cover. All right, I got my puddle going, see it? What does my output read? How many amps am I using right now?
105, 107.
So take a look. Take a look at the
Really,
surface.
really bright in my mask, is that the difference, Dave?
Yeah, it is
Or
bright.
could I have it on the?
No, you gotta turn your sensitivity up so it
Yeah.
picks it up easier.
Yeah, turn your sensitivity up. So let's take a look at this, okay?
Or turn it down. I don't know whether you turn it up or down.
So you can see on here, you can quite readily see the heat affected zone on the metal, and you can see where I was fusing the metal on the surface. And yeah, I was only using about 107 amps. I wasn't using the full 150. 150 to get the pool going, drop it down to like 100, 107, just to keep it liquid. I don't need to use it all the way. So that's a fusion weld, and I'm using the pedal. Only use the heat I need. I weld in a very particular way. And when I'm TIG welding, I pulse my pedal a lot. I only like to use as much power as I can get away with. So I don't keep it on. I don't like hit it and just keep it on all the time. Just because of the nature of the work I've done with very thin stainless and very expensive things, just being really, really, really mindful of how much juice I'm pumping in. So I'm using my foot at all times. You can see that in the readout. I'm constantly monitoring that thing. So I'm gonna do a quick beat on here.
The first time you used it,
Yeah.
that was on DC.
That was on AC, that loud bzzz sound.
Okay. And then you switched it to
DC, direct current. So direct current is stainless, Inconel, aluminum, stainless steel.
Doesn't matter.
Alternating current is an aluminum only, but I have used it for cast iron, believe it or not. Very, very well. So it's like, yeah, there are, again, with welding, there are rules that we follow, but we can bend them somewhat. And so, do you always use AC for aluminum, no other metal? Well, I've used it for brass, bronze. I've used it for cast iron. You can do that. So there's a lot of experimentation and a lot of new things coming down the pipe, which means it's very important to, follow good sites online and read up on new developments. There's new stuff being developed all the time. You want to know what that is? This is science,
Machines are getting smarter and smarter. That one's pretty smart. That's fairly new.
That's a good point. Okay, yes, the machines are getting smarter and smarter, but, I don't want to sound really crusty here, but here's the thing. Even though the machines are getting more intelligent, they cannot take the place of you. They cannot. You are controlling this thing, okay? It doesn't take the place of a skilled, knowledgeable craftsperson. It doesn't, because it's like you could say that, well, we have all these cars with AI-driven controls and they can self-park. Do they make people better drivers? No, in fact, they made people worse drivers. You can look at the stats. This comes up a lot in my other hobby, like motorcycling, okay? So you've got bikes today that are have 6-axis, inertial ABS control, anti-lock everything, collision sensing. They've got automatic upshifting and downshifting and rev matching, and it's insane. Yes, they do let people pilot machines that are almost 300 horsepower. You can buy, friends of mine have S1000Rs, BMW superbikes for street use that are over 200 horsepower, okay? Now, they can only drive those machines because a computer is there keeping things from getting out of control. Okay?
It's kind
Now-
of like a red line in a vehicle right now. You can go a certain-
It's a governor. You know, they can only drive those, even racing people are talking about this. You know? Yeah, they can only race these machines that are like 300 horsepower race bikes because there's a computer monitoring every single system in real time, because the minute you turn it off, kaboom, it's completely out of control. But so what's the use of things that computers have to be used when we're using systems that are beyond the ability of humans to control? That should tell you something. So, do you need those things? No. As a craftsperson, here's what I believe, okay? And this is a common saying, you know, better tools don't make a better mechanic. You could weld, a really, really good welder, fabricator, can take the crummiest of tools and welders and pull out beautiful work. You can take a 100-year-old welder and do welds just as good as somebody using a brand new $10,000 machine. It's all up here. It's all up here. It's in your head, it's in your heart. So we want to rely on those things. That's where it's at. And that's the difference from what we're training here. That's why we are high-skilled labor. We do what machines cannot do. That's why we exist. What we do here, no machine can do this, believe it or not. There is no robot that can do this. It is way beyond their capabilities. It requires way too much mental processing power. And you'll see, this is hard stuff, people. Both hands and feet and brain at the same time, right now, for 8 hours or 10 hours without stopping. You can do that. A robot, it'll be a smoking ruin. They can't handle
That's
it.
the thing that I scratch my head about when I'm watching videos.
Yeah.
Watching a guy do a pipe weld. I'm
Yeah.
going, we can send people to the moon.
Yeah.
We don't have a machine that'll do that? Nope.
No, there are. I've used them. There are machines that can do pipe sections. I've used one. The thing is, when you have to, each pipe section you put in has to be perfectly round. The edges have to be perfectly square. The welds have to be lined up exactly. The minute there's something out of alignment, the machine cannot compensate. So it stops dead cold. So you end up spending, so it's actually really, we used one that was good for when you're doing like, you know, repetitive runs of the same thing over and over and over again. It's really good. Yeah, if you're doing the same like butt welds, like I gotta do like 50 butt welds, it's like, well, let's let the machine do it and we'll do the really fun, complicated stuff. They're good, but machines can't, like, you know, things don't break the same way twice. So how do you program a machine to repair like a broken machine? It cracks differently, something here, what went wrong, you know? Machines can't compensate for that, but our human minds can. That's the value. That's why so many employers these days are clamoring for our services, because despite the rise in robots doing things, robots are great for repetitive, boring tasks nobody wants to do. Nobody wants, you know, shelving hundreds of boxes, you know, mopping floors in a warehouse. Robots are great for that because it's mind-numbing jobs nobody wants to do. But something like this, repairing something that's broken, this kind of thing, this is what humans are needed for. And that's why we have value. You know, jet planes, jet engines don't break the same way twice. They don't crack the same way twice. That's what all the places around there are called FAA certified repair stations. A lot of their business is refurbishing broken parts. Planes come in, they gotta get them back in the air as soon as possible. That's what we do. That's our job.
Is that a video about playing how to replace the computer?
What, that?
Use the right bolts.
Or you preview? Preheated? No, actually not. And I'll tell you why when we get there. All right, so let's run the bead. So, beads can be run in 2 different ways, ladies and gentlemen. Huh?
It looks like you hit a rock or something.
Yeah, I don't know what he did. He abused it. So, all right. So beads can be run in 2 ways. There are 2 ways of running welds here. 2 styles. One is called drop by drop, and one's called lay wire. So, drop by drop is like what it sounds. I'm going to come in here, and I want to match my movement of my torch to my wire. So as I press down on the pedal and I increase my amperage, I'm increasing my temperature, I'm adding metal to melt. I back off, I move on, I'm continually going like this. Think of like you ever see those drinking bird things? That go doop, doop. Think like that. Your hand is like the drinking bird, okay? So it's gonna go bloop, 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 and you add a little bit of the metal as you go. Now lay wire, you actually, is a technique where you lay the wire and you basically just melt right on top of it. Yeah, it's a very good technique when you've got a really good fit up, it's really clean, and you can lay it like in a fillet, drop it in the corner and just go right over it. It's only good if your fit up is really, really tight. If it's in a regular fit up where it's kind of like dicey, that's where drop by drop comes in. Because basically think of it like one weld at a time. You're stringing together a whole bunch of tiny little like 1/8 or 1/4 welds, boop, 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 all in line. So it's a little bit different. But both styles can be used. You can use them interchangeably. Drop by drop here, lay wire where I can, I go back. I can weld this way, I can switch hands and weld this way. And we're gonna do both. I'm gonna weld with both hands here, okay? So first thing I'm gonna do is drop by drop. So cover it. I want to establish my weld pool first, here. So I'm gonna hit the metal, get my weld pool going, get my shimmer, and I'm gonna start adding my metal to it. As you see, I'm pulsing. Each pulse is a drop. Hold on there, like cool, and there we go.
How far away are you?
It got really dark. I have to get my other glasses because I'm actually blind. Can you hit stop on that thing on the phone, on the video? Hit stop on there.